Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a Monday edition of the show, our second Monday episode, as we did one at midnight last night after the
Yeah.
Bucs game. And we are now into the offseason for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers since they lost 23-20. In the waning moments of the game last night to the Washington Commanders. So we had a busy day today, spoke to Todd Bowles, spoke to a number of players in the locker room, and it's time to start setting the stage for what is next for this group that must level up in 2025, because we do believe that the Super Bowl window is very much open for this Bucs team and what they have returning for next season. So let's get into it. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com and my co-host, Scott Reynolds. Scott, how are we doing?
Doing good. We're a little sleep deprived, aren't we? with regards to everything that's happened over there at One Buccaneer Place and the stadium last night. It's been a crazy, not even 24 hours. I mean, we're sleep deprived, but we're hanging in there, and we're excited to talk some Bucs football to you, Pewter people out there today. And you know, it's as we were talking, Matt, we don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. The Glazers, Jason Light, they're going to figure out what they're going to do, whether they're going to keep Todd Bowles or whether they're going to, maybe move in a different direction. We'll have to wait and see. But the one thing that is for certain is the fact that I've seen in my 30 years of doing this, Black Monday doesn't really mean anything to this team because they have made
Right.
coaching changes, and you've been a part of one, the most recent one with Bruce Arians leaving on March 22nd. Matt, we were at the NFL owners meeting in West Palm Beach, getting ready to talk to Bruce Arians, although he wasn't there. He was there, then he left, and Todd Bowles took over the next day as the Bucs head coach, and that was back in 2022. That was in March. That was a head coaching change in March with Bruce Arians' abrupt retirement. I have seen the Glazers fire John Gruden 19 days after the 2008 season. We have seen John Gruden get acquired via a trade in mid-February when this team fired Tony Dungy, and then went on a protracted coaching search looking for candidates far and near to replace Tony Dungy before settling on John Gruden. That was a big trade that the Glazers made. So yeah, I've kind of seen it all. I'll wait for like an official word from the team to determine if Todd Bowles will be back or not. I asked Todd right off the bat at the press conference today, have you had a chance to meet with Jason Light or the Glazers yet? He said no. So doesn't mean that something's going to happen. This team could very well decide to move on with Todd Bowles and better luck next year, etc. We'll see what happens with Liam Coen. But the one thing that we probably would be remiss if we didn't say is there's not one owner of the team, Matt. And I think this is a key point we have to make. In this picture, you see Bruce Arians along with Todd Bowles, front and center, Jason Light, and Darcy Glazer Kasowitz and Joe Glazer, as well as Brian Glazer and Ed Glazer. So there are four co-chairmen, co-chair people of the organization that are part owners. So this is not Jason Light having a conversation with one owner and deciding which way that owner wants to go. This is a bit of a quorum here where they have to all kind of come together. Can't have a hung jury. You got to make a decision, a unanimous decision, if you're going to keep a coach or move on. And this is a situation, I think, where you have to take a little bit of time and evaluate that. And maybe they end up keeping Todd Bowles. There is an argument to be made for that. There's an argument to be made to move on from Todd Bowles based upon what happened last night in a game where his defense couldn't get off the field. But we may not know the exact course that this team is going to chart from the top down, meaning the Glazers and Jason Light, until later tonight, tomorrow, later this week. Who knows? They'll let us know, I guess.
They will. First of all, There was a great behind-the-scenes moment today for you, Peter people. A conversation with ourselves and Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Scott and Rick were kind of going back and forth, sharing stories about some of the crazy coaching moments and coach firings during the time that they've covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So just to listen to that conversation was truly enjoyable and a little bit eerie to bring it back to the Bucs now with what you just said about asking Todd Bowles, has he spoken to Jason and the Glazers? And he was like, no. So that kind of leaves it up in the air because I will say at the beginning of the press conference, Todd Bowles was kind of talking like a guy that was thinking he might not be around next season. Not that he was on the verge of tears or anything like that, but you could kind of hear it in his voice a little bit, not the utmost, confidence or assurance that he's going to be back. But then as the press conference went on, he started talking a lot more about, oh, well, we can do this better. We got to focus on the little things. Next year in training camp, we're going to do this, and that.
Yeah.
So I don't know Bowles isn't going to come out and straight up say like, hey, I'm done, or hey, I'll see you guys back here in August, or whatever the case may be. But it left it very much open-ended, and it very much also feels like it's kind of a coin flip when it comes to Todd Bowles based on the history of the Glazers and the risk that they've taken. Because everything with Tony Dungy, they took the risk of getting rid of him, going with John Gruden, and that paid off. But then we also saw them go with moves like move on from Lovie Smith. And I know those teams weren't good,
right?
But keeping Dirk Cutter for the continuity with Jameis Winston, and that didn't work out. And then you had to keep trying. You had to keep going through different trials and tribulations until eventually you landed on Bruce Arians. And then even the Bruce Arians, him leaving, like we talked about, middle of March, right in the middle of free agency, the draft right around the corner.
That's right.
That's not good for continuity. So if they're going to make a decision, I think they have to do it within the next week or two. I mean, we're looking at the Cowboys right now, and they missed out on opportunities to interview Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn because they wanted to hold on to Mike McCarthy and then just decided today, we're not going to move on with Mike McCarthy. So unless the Bucs know for a fact, and I guess Liam Coen, if they were to get rid of Todd Bowles, I'm sure Liam Coen would be like, yeah, I'll take the Bucs head coaching job versus like another team, but we also can't guarantee that. So there's a lot of moving parts. A lot of balls are in the air at the moment. And really, until the Glazers come to a decision on Todd Bowles, we're kind of just sitting and waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of interesting about this whole thing. And that's why Rick and I were talking with you and Adam about this. Us old fellas, we've been around the block a couple of years now, And we've seen it all. We've seen coaching changes happen the day after the season. We've seen it happen 19 days after the season, as was the case with John Gruden. It was January 16th. This is back when the season ended, like in late December. We've seen Tony Dungy's replacement, John Gruden, get acquired via trade in the middle of February. And then, of course, Bruce Arians stepped down in March. So maybe the next one will happen in April, like right before the draft or something. I don't know. We've had January, February, March. Who knows with this franchise? And so all we can do is just kind of go forward with the status quo, which is Todd Bowles right now. And I think that's what Todd had to do for his press conference today. He's operating under the assumption prior to his meeting with Jason Light and the Glazers that he's the head coach until he's not, right? So he's going to make those types of things. So that's why today's topic of the show, we're going to kind of focus on what we know. And the reason why we used the picture of Kalijah Cansey there, Kalijah had his first taste of Jaden Daniels, and that speed is real.
Yeah.
He had a couple of chances to get him and missed some point-blank opportunities. And that's saying something because this is the most athletic and the fastest defensive tackle the Bucs have. Saw Vita Vea miss some opportunities. It just about took Yaya Diaby it looked like he was trying to like take down a little baby calf like a rodeo star on his sack that ended up being wiped out with Zion McCollum's penalty. But Jaden Daniels is hard to get down. And there were a couple of moments in this game, right, with Kalijah Cansey, who was distraught after the game. Yaya Diaby, who was, inches away from breaking up a pass on 2nd and 10 that ended up going for 18 yards. It was a huge play in that final drive. He's out there covering Austin Eckler, and I don't think that's a good matchup. I don't like the best pass rusher from the edge dropping into coverage and being responsible for covering a third down running back who's one of the better pass catchers in the league. And I haven't seen Yaya make any plays in pass coverage. I haven't seen any of the outside linebackers really make a play in pass coverage. So that came back to bite Todd Bowles and the Bucs. And then you've got Graham Barton, the center. He had, that kind of early snap that you wrote about today, Matt, on PewterReport.com. And I think these are some pivotal moments for these players. These are star nucleus guys for this team that will make an impression on them, that will drive them in the offseason to level up their games. And they're going to level up just in the weight room. They're going to level up just from the experience, the failure. What does fail mean? FAIL, first attempt in learning, right? It's an acronym. And so to me, well, it's not really, but I mean, it's some scientist, some sports psychologist has thrown it out there, right? And so to me, you look at some of these moments, and it reminds me of when way back in the day when Tampa Bay got their first playoff win under Tony Dungy against the Detroit Lions. And back in 1997, the first year of the red and pewter, they went up to Green Bay and they lost to Brett Favre and the Packers 21-7. And Warren Sapp had a phenomenal game. I think he sacked Favre 3 times. He was just, he did everything he could to single-handedly try to beat Brett Favre and the Packers, and it wasn't good enough. But that drove Sapp, who drove the Buccaneers to the next level. And it didn't happen in the next year. They actually had a setback. They actually went 8-8 in 1998 because everybody read the press clippings and how good they were. But then it fueled them in 1999 to go to the NFC Championship game, almost made it to the Super Bowl. And so my point is sometimes like this big moment with that bad Graham Barton snap that ended up being costly, with Yaya Diaby, not having the impact game that he wanted to have, those game-changing plays. Same with Kalijah Kancey. They can embolden you. Like, that can be the fuel to take your game to the next level in your off-season training and your preparation. And I've just seen it here with the likes of Brooks and Sapp back in the day, and even Jason Pierre-Paul when he was here, just other great players that have been in this organization. I've seen how failure can be the springboard for success. And I think that there were a couple of those instances in last night's game.
That's very intriguing because the more I think about it, you look at the team last year, it gets to the second round, and it was a little bit of like hey, look at us. We're in the second round of the playoffs. This is very nice. Where this year, it's kind of like, damn it, we should be on our way to the NFC Championship game. Like, first round and exit, not good enough by any means. And that's why, speaking to the players today, whether it was Graham Barton or, Cade Otton, a lot of these other guys, even Todd Bowles spoke about it. They know they're talented. They know they can accomplish a lot of stuff. They know they can do great things just based on their talent. But a lot of them really harped and reiterated on the fundamentals, the little things, the small stuff to make the difference to kind of get them over the hump. And they're not that far away. No. Like if they played the Commanders 10 times, I could see that series going 5-5. There would have to be an 11th game for a tiebreaker. Like it wasn't like the Bucs got blown out or anything like that. So it's really just the small, minute details. And that's what Kalijah Kancey is a perfect example for, because he was close but no cigar. And that was kind of a situation for the Bucs all season long, getting close to the quarterback, almost making that interception, almost getting the pass breakup, and was just a second too late. And Graham Barton, I got to give a lot of respect. I mean, he seems so mature for a rookie just entering the league. That was a tough situation last night. He obviously messed up, and he didn't run away from it. He didn't shy from it. He explained everything that went on. He said he thought he heard a little bit of a different cadence. He was still making his calls when Baker was in the middle of his own cadence as well. And I respect that so much, because we've seen Todd Bowles before just dig a deeper hole and make excuses worse for himself, where where Graham Barton was just like, hey, listen, I messed up. It was my fault. I feel terrible about it. And I think that'll help him long term, just being honest. So this is still a good team.
Yeah.
They're obviously they need to upgrade in certain areas. And yeah, I think the way that they lost, the being so close that you could taste it type of situation that went on in last night's game, that's going to fuel Kalijah Cansey. It's going to make Graham Barton better, and this whole team is better. So expect a motivated group going into 2025.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it looks like we're having some technical issues. I hear Matt okay.
Yeah, I hear you well.
Yeah, but I'm seeing here that there were some mic issues, but that might just be with StreamYard. Sometimes the program here gets a little fidgety, but it looks like maybe that's passed. Hopefully that is the case. You guys are really coming with the comments today. We appreciate it. I'm trying to scroll through and get to some of these. We do have roll call here coming up, and we'll do that in just a minute, and then we'll get to some of these super chats too. You guys were great last night. The attendance in the chat room last night at 1 and 1:30 at night Eastern time was crazy. It would have been so easy for everybody just to go to bed and be pissed off and disgruntled, and y'all came and brought your comments, your questions, the super chats, everything. It was great. So we really appreciate your support and your support today, showing up for what is not a Victory Monday. I think everybody was hoping and expecting that was the case, but it's not. It's as Todd Bowles said,
angry Monday.
It's an angry Monday, yeah. And as Todd Bowles said, only one team's going to be happy at the end of the season. Really, that's just it. I mean, it's the team that wins the Super Bowl, and everybody else. You don't feel great because that's the ultimate goal. But Matt, we haven't even talked about it because we've been so busy covering this team today. Do you have a rant that you want to go on, or something you want to pontificate on while I put up some of these fine people's locations today?
Yeah, I think because everyone has been talking about Todd Bowles and his overall job security, whether he should be back, whether he shouldn't be back, I think it's not a bad idea to just kind of go over a pros and cons list of why Todd Bowles should return, or why you think the Bucs should get rid of Todd Bowles and pivot to Liam Coen. So, if we want to get started with roll call, we want to know where you're at, Pewter people. We have great fans all over the globe, and we love interacting with each and every one of you. And one way we do that is through roll call, where around 4:20 on every Monday show, one of us goes into a conversation about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in the meantime, if you want to put in the comments where you're watching from, we'll put it up on the screen and give a couple of shout outs as well. So I'll get it rocking and rolling with the deep conversation that is Todd Bowles and his head coaching future for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think a lot more people, just getting the sense of reading the comments and people online, more people are in the boat. I guess we'll keep it chip related because it's the Buccaneers, are in the boat of moving on from Todd Bowles in favor of Liam Coen. So because of that, we'll start with the negatives of Todd Bowles, because if this was a trial in the court of law, the defendant gets to go last. So that's the last word that you hear. So if you're going to be in favor of Todd Bowles. So the issues against Todd Bowles: he's a defensive coach that had a really bad pass defense this season, one of the worst in the league. The middle of the field was wide open nonstop. There's issues getting to the quarterback. We know Todd Bowles loves to blitz, but the blitzes were not getting home. And sometimes there was a lack of the creativity of the blitz, because we've seen so many times Antoine Winfield Jr. off the edge, Levante David up the middle. And when Todd Bowles is dropping Yaya Diaby and Anthony Nelson and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka back in coverage, are you really putting your best foot forward, or having your best foot dropping backwards in coverage, when you have outside linebackers doing it and you're not having them rush after the passer, which is why they were signed and drafted to this team in the first place? So schematically, that was an issue. The constant driving down the field with a minute and change to go to get a field goal right before halftime. The Cowboys game that really stood out, the Saints game that really stood out, the last one that took place in Raymond James Stadium, making Cooper Rush look like a Pro Bowl type of quarterback. Those are all knocks against Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
You could look at his overall record with the Buccaneers, and you went 8-9, you went 9-7, or 9-8, and then 10-7. Yeah, you're improving, but you still won the division with a losing record. There's also the timeout situation, which was bad in Kansas City. It was bad against Dallas. People had issues with, his timeout calling at the end of the game when Washington had the football. The lack of turnovers falls a little bit on Todd Bowles as well. So these are all reasons why you might want to move on from Todd Bowles. The lack of adjustments, and also not making personnel changes when they were necessary. And we've seen that from a number of positions. So that's the cons. The pros, if you want to support Todd Bowles, he was able to, first of all, the players love him. They respect him. They really enjoy playing for him. I think that's really important, because when you're finding a head coach, you want to find a leader of men, people that respect you, that listen to what you have to say in the locker room when it's a post-game speech. Todd Bowles has that. Todd Bowles has won the division 3 years in a row. Regardless of the record, he's gotten his team to the playoffs, and they've won enough games when needed to, when the game was on the line, to get into the postseason. There were injuries on top of injuries on top of injuries on defense this year, which is what Todd Bowles, that's what he's here for. That's his baby, the defense.
That's right.
Not having Antoine Winfield Jr. was huge for a majority of the season. Jamel Dean going in and out was pretty important. The regression of KJ Britt, or really just KJ Britt never showing up, was tough.
Yeah.
The depth at inside linebacker after Savasier Dennis went out is part of an issue. Yaya Diaby not progressing as an edge rusher doesn't help either. These are things that are a little bit out of Todd Bowles' control. I think also having a team that lost several games in a row, but still having the wherewithal to band together and overcome it and get into a winning streak after that, Todd Bowles deserves some credit. So, and also, I know this defense was bad this year, but also we got to look at his overall history of being a defensive play caller for the Bucs, and that's pretty damn good. So you're just going to give up on that because of one down season? Does he deserve the right to try to fix the mistakes? That's a question that the Glazers have to answer, and what everyone else can give their opinion on. But Bowles is a pretty good leader. It hasn't always translated to wins and losses. He is very well respected. There was a number of injuries, and overall, that's why I think it's kind of a coin flip, because for all the negative stuff about Todd Bowles, he has some positives as well. I'm not really defending him one way or another.
Right, yeah.
I'm just saying
he's taking an objective look at it. Right.
Yeah, you just need to factor every single thing in, and whether you lean on one side or the other, that's totally fine. And I think we also have to understand the grass isn't always greener on the other side. We can say, hey, Liam Coen's going to be this next big thing, but you even said it in the Monday mailbag, which I would recommend for everybody to read. We don't know how Liam Coen's going to be as a leader. We don't know what Liam Coen is like when adversity strikes. Could he get a team that lost 4 or 5 games in a row to turn their season around? We don't necessarily know. So again, I'm not sitting here being like Todd Bowles absolutely needs to be back. I'm just saying it's not all negative, and there's some positive stuff as well. Now, people in the comments after the show will be like, look at Matt defending Todd Bowles. I'm not. I'm just laying out both sides of the argument for everybody, and everyone can come up with their own conclusion.
Yeah. Well said, Matt. I think you're spot on there. And I think part of the thing, too, is when you look at the Glazers, this is not an easy decision, because this is a team full of good dudes. The Buccaneers don't get in problems with the law, right? Todd Bowles is a father figure to these guys, very much in the same way Dungy was. He's very well respected, very well liked, very well admired within the building. There's no division. There's no offense versus defense. There are some really good qualities about Todd Bowles, and I think that's why it would make a tough decision for the Glazers, because this is a big step. You don't want to take a step backwards. You don't want to sit there and say, well, maybe the grass is greener, so we're going to go over here on this lawn now. And that's not always the case. At the same time, this team has made some bold moves. the boldest of which was firing Tony Dungy and making the Hail Mary trade for John Gruden. It worked out. Malcolm Glazer, the late owner of the team, struck gold. I mean, that was instant success, 12-4 record, Super Bowl championship, etc. And then they fired Tony Dungy, John Gruden, who had just gotten a 3-year contract extension and a raise in the 2008 offseason. They fire him at the end of the 2008 season after a 9-3 finish. Their start dissolved into a 9-7 finish without the playoffs. And they thought that Raheem Morris might be the next Mike Tomlin. He wasn't. So they've made some mistakes along the way too. So you don't know, though, until you give somebody an opportunity, whether they can be that guy or not, right? We didn't know if Tyreek Thunderbird could play or not. Turns out he couldn't because he got burned. Not saying Josh Hayes is any better, certainly not last night, but you don't know if these guys can play until they show you that they can. We didn't think Payne Durham was going to be a guy that could really be a legit receiving target and catch a couple touchdowns in back-to-back games until he did. We know if Cade Otton could be a guy that could have a 100-yard game as a tight end until he was the best option for Baker Mayfield, and then he proved he could. So that's the thing. If Liam Coen gets a shot, whether it's in Tampa or somewhere else, we don't know until we give him an opportunity, and that's all you can ask. The thing I do appreciate about the Glazers is they have not held on to mistakes. 2 years of Lovie Smith was enough. 2 years of Greg Schiano was enough. 3 years of Dirk Cutter was enough. 3 years of Raheem Morris was enough. And they've also fired Tony Dungy after 3 straight playoff appearances when they came to the conclusion, as tough as it was, hey, we appreciate you turning around the franchise and going from the Yuccaneers to the Buccaneers and becoming the all-time winningest head coaching team history at that time in 2001. But they said, you're not the guy that's going to take us to the next level. And I just wonder if that is where they're at with Todd Bowles, because we've seen now an 8-win team and a first-round playoff loss, a 9-win team and a wild card win, but a second-round playoff loss, and now a 10-win team, but another home wild card loss. He's 1-3 in the postseason, and you only have X amount of opportunities, Matt, before you make a determination. This guy's not sure we can get it done with this guy, and maybe that's where the team is at, or maybe they look and say, hey, if Liam Coen doesn't get another opportunity anywhere else, and this could be part of the equation, Matt, they may be wondering what's going on with Liam Coen. If this musical chairs of head coaches finishes and he doesn't find a seat, in other words, he's standing, he's back in Tampa as the offensive coordinator. And maybe they want to run it back with another year, knowing that, hey, Liam Coen didn't get poached away from another team. He's back as the offensive coordinator. If things start to go south with Todd, we can always pull the switcheroo because we have Liam. That could be something that they're considering as well. There are a lot of ways to skin a cat. We've heard that expression. And there's a lot of moving parts here, I think, in this puzzle for who's going to be the head coach of the Buccaneers and why.
No doubt about it. And I honestly think the best case scenario for the Bucs is either Coen turns down a head coaching job that he doesn't want just based on the situation, or teams go in a different direction and they want to see a little bit more from Liam Coen, so he comes back to Tampa. I'm fine with Coen as OC and Todd Bowles back for another season. Because, again, I think it is important in the NFL. I know franchises don't want to hear, but sometimes patience works, whether it's a player developing. Look at Logan Hall. We were ready to be done with Logan Hall, and now all of a sudden, 5.5 sacks this year. Jason Lighton, his win-loss history up until Bruce Arians came into town, it wasn't ideal either. I think Bowles, if they can get the right personnel this year and make some defensive coaching changes, I think Bowles can find a way to tap back into that 2020 defense, that 2021 style of defense, which is why I'm really intrigued for what the front office is going to do this year after they figure out who's going to be a GM in other places with Spytek and Mike Greenberg. Because as great as the Bucs have been, I'm a little tired, and I get why they had to do it because based on the salary cap and all that stuff. I'm a little tired of getting all these players from the Dollar Tree. Like all these undrafted free agents have to work out. It's time for the Bucs to start going to the Gucci store and Louis Vuitton and going to all these top places. Like, I understand the importance of development with guys like Yaya Diaby, and we'll see what's up with Chris Braswell. But go out and get a good damn pass rusher that you know that you can rely on and not just hope that they take the next step. Now, the Bucs have benefited from that on the offensive line, whether it's Luke Gedeke, whether it's Cody Mauch after the season.
Yep.
But not every single person is going to take strides. That's just the percentages of, going through the draft. And they do a great job of building through the draft. But in free agency, when you can find kind of more sure things, I want to see them actually go after it this year. And I think they will. But let's start, increasing that budget. Let's start going to some different places in the mall to bring in personnel for the Bucs this year.
Yeah. Speaking of prices are down on some Celsius at Amazon, Matt. I was able to get a case of orange for like $16.99 or something like that, which is great. Usually it's around $20. So it's just one of the places you can find our friends over at Celsius, their tasty beverages that have kept me energized and awake. I think I've had 3 Celsius within a 24-hour period, probably one too many. But damn it, I need it, especially on days like today. Celsius came through last night for our draft coverage. What I'm saying, draft coverage, game coverage. Sorry, I'm in my mind. I'm thinking playoffs, draft, free agency, head coaching changes. It's off-season mode, folks. We're busy over here at One Buck Place, and in our homes, checking out all of the Buccaneers coverage for you guys and prepping all of our stories and content and lining up our offseason. We'll be in Mobile, Alabama in just 2 weeks. It's crazy to think about, but we're going to be doing our Senior Bowl coverage. So lots going on for sure. Lots of Celsius in the veins right now. And thankfully, that's the case because I'm awake for this podcast, if not for Celsius, Matt.
Yeah, thank you to Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com, keeping us going during these late nights and early mornings as well, churning out content on PewterReport.com. There's so many fantastic flavors of Celsius. I know I love the Arctic Vibe. They have new flavors out every single week, like the Playa Celsius energy drink, which is a pina colada flavor. So if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest location where you could pick one up. Could be a Walmart, a Publix, a Stop and Shop, or maybe, just maybe, it's your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you keep going to your bodega, and you know you love Celsius, and you know you want more, and you want to get it in bulk, you can get it in bulk over on Amazon with the subscribe and save. Have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. Just set it up at your own leisure. Make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Get that variety pack for all the fantastic flavors.
Great stuff. We had an awesome turnout today. Before we get to these super chats, we have a lot lined up, so we're going to get to your questions. Saving the best for last today. Usually we get super chats right off the bat, but we have a lot to talk about, and this is like the icing on the cake for you guys here. One thing we want to make sure we do is we want to thank our Pewter Platinum members.
Yes.
We have a couple new ones, too. We have Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, and Zach Jarvis. We also have Hezo813 who leveled up, as well as Ash Fishpool. So thank you so much for your support. We will tomorrow run, because we're going to have a podcast tomorrow, Matt. We're in the off season, but we have a podcast Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 4:00 p.m. So we will have a podcast tomorrow. We'll be sure to hit our Pewter Premium members up with a big thank you, as well as take a look at some of our new members. And if you're interested in becoming a Pewter Report TV channel member, it's really easy to do. It's the great way you can show your support for Pewter Report by joining this channel and getting some cool perks along the way. You can get loyalty badges and custom emojis. You can get early access to videos, exclusive Q&A videos that we call the Pewter Insider on Fridays. It's a members only chat with myself and Matt Matera, usually at 1:30 on Fridays. And that's for our Pewter Premier and Platinum members. The Pewter Platinum members get free Pewter Report merchandise, all of the goodies, as well as a twice annual platinum member meetup in Tampa. That's going to take place in February, which is just a month away. So we're working on details for that. And we're excited about the growth of our Pewter Report TV YouTube channel memberships, as well as our community. You guys have been great with the numbers, supporting our podcast, the listens, the downloads, the comments, the views, all of that stuff. It's awesome. We do this for you. And we would be remiss if we didn't throw out a couple of great Pewter people watching from around the country and around the world. Just give a couple shout outs here to Payne Gusto from Montclair, New Jersey. We've got Danny Lyon out there in Reno, Nevada.
Ooh.
Cincy cool. Kid is Tampa Bay representing. Sean McGinty from Raleigh, North Carolina. And from Bucky Irving's hometown, Chicago's South Side, Will the Brewer. Back in the Florida area here. Bartow, Florida is where Christopher Cole watches the show. We've got T850 up there in Atlanta, Falcons country. Kieran Butt, one of our faves from across the pond, mate. Norfolk, UK. Norfolk, yeah, UK at 9:30 p.m., which is awesome. Virginia, Med GWR, Shenandoah Valley. I've got some property up there. So my dad used to live up there in the Shenandoah Valley. Beautiful country up there. And Thomas Pelukidis from Fort Myer, Florida. He's at work playing general manager. That's fun. We get to play general manager at work too, don't we?
Yeah.
Don't we, Matt? That's
Bucs
part of our job.
Plan.
Yeah, exactly. And just a couple more. We got Paul, a.k.a. OG Baker Bro, Cleveland, Ohio, of course. And then a few more. SAP doctor at Alexandria, Louisiana. Carl Hardy from Tennessee. James Hamilton from Louisville, Kentucky. Boy, I could use some bourbon today. And last but not least, driving from Pensacola to Mobile, Alabama is BAA. And, we do have one more. Sorry, Trevor Holmes. Charlotte, it could be worse. We could be Panthers fans today. So great turnout as always, not just in last night's chat, but the chat today for roll call. It's always fun to find out where you Pewter people are listening and watching from. And now we talked about those super chats. We got them lined up. Let's knock them down.
Let's get to it. And thanks again, everybody, for your participation. Starting with Zap Brannigan. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Can't wait for the stellar off-season coverage and see how many Bucs best bets Scott hits on this year. Hashtag fire Todd Bowles. Go Bucs. Yeah, that's right. The offseason is just as action-packed as the regular season. Obviously, There's some more hypotheticals. Imagine if the Bucs get this guy or that guy. But, yeah, Scott is absolutely nails when it comes to the Bucs' best bets. Very accurate when it comes to it. So if you want to know who the Bucs are targeting this year in the draft, read Scott's mock drafts, look at the Bucs' best bets, all the write-ups and stuff, because that's the best place to find it.
Yeah, Josh Capo gives me a great assist in that category, as really do all of the Pewter reporters, because we're there, boots on the ground in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl, watching these guys. It's where we saw Yaya Diaby. It's where we've seen Tyke Smith. Some of these guys that the Buccaneers ended up drafting starts there in Mobile, right? So that's a big part of it. Then we go to the combine as well, do those player interviews, look at the testing numbers, et cetera, and that's how we nail some of these Bucs best bets.
Kyle Miller, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Says, need to see this team on a villain arc next year. Yep. I totally get what you're saying, because one thing we've talked about before is the Bucs don't have that guy that like really brings an edge or an attitude the way that JPP has.
That's right.
That doesn't mean they don't have skilled players. Yeah, on defense specifically. Yep. Antoine Winfield Jr. is a great player. Vita Vea is a great player. But they're also nice guys. And that doesn't mean like they shouldn't be captains of the team.
Right.
It's just you kind of need that a-hole a little bit. And
John Lynch was a nice guy. Ronnie Barber was a nice guy. Warren Sapp, not so much, right? Hardy Nickerson, not so much. You need those fire starters, those guys that do bring an edge. Well said.
Bucs Basement, thank you for this $10 super chat. Says, how can you say the Bucs are ready to make a Super Bowl run with Bowles as head coach? You're not going anywhere with him. His ceiling has been reached, and he's going to cost you with his horrendous time management.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're saying is the talent on this team is Super Bowl caliber.
Yeah.
If managed properly, if and that includes game management too, timeout usage, clock management, those types of things. That's all part of the equation. That's where coaching matters, right? Because if the coaching did matter, they just tell the players show up at 1:00 at the stadium and coach yourselves and go out there and play football. But coaching does matter. Again, I think this team has the talent to get to and win a Super Bowl, especially on the offensive side. The defense does need to be retooled, reworked, reloaded, whatever reword you want to use. It needs to be rebuilt into a Super Bowl caliber defense. But at least one side of the ball is certainly set as long as Liam Coen is the orchestra of that conductor, or I should say the conductor of that orchestra. And to me, when you look at this, I think it can be done pretty quickly because you do have some really good foundational pieces. Zion McCollum, you're going to have Antoine Winfield Jr. coming back with a vengeance next year. I'm curious to see what Servastian Dennis does. I liked him from the small sample size. Kalijah Kancey is going to be better next year. Yaya Diaby, Vita Vea still in his prime. Chris Braswell, I think, has a chance to make the next leap up with better coaching. So they've got some real pieces there, and you can supplement in free agency. And what I would recommend to Jason Light, if he's watching the show right now, is sign a big-time pass rusher in free agency, sign a Pro Bowl or starting caliber corner, bolster the safety position, and then certainly get another veteran at linebacker, whether you're re-signing Levante David or you're going out and getting somebody in free agency. Zach Bond would be a really enticing player. Then pretend that you didn't make any of those moves in free agency and then go out and draft all of those positions. Double up at every position I just said, linebacker, outside linebacker, or edge rusher if you're going to a 4-3. Safety, cornerback. Pretend that you didn't sign those guys in free agency and then attack the draft that way. Double up. Make sure you have enough depth. And if you don't hit on a free agent, maybe you hit on the draft pick at that particular spot. But that's the best way to safeguard. Throw the kitchen sink towards the defense, and then also find a wide receiver in the draft to supplement that position as well. But this really should just be a defensive offseason for Tampa Bay.
Go to the Balenciaga store, Jason. Go to the Balenciaga store. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Jason at times has been at his best when, as you have titled, flood the position.
Yeah.
Whether it was keep doubling down on corners until you found your starting corners. We've seen it time and time again. And because the offense is in such a good spot, and because everyone's pretty much coming back with the exception of maybe Ben Bredesen, and obviously they have to figure it out with Chris Godwin, it gives the Bucs the luxury to focus strictly on defense. And while there needs to be changes, like if Yaya Diaby is the second string outside linebacker, that's a really good spot for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, if he's the number 2, that's okay. Yeah.
Right. And you have Zion as your starting corner. You have Antoine Winfield Jr. as your starting safety. Jordan Whitehead hopefully will be coming back next season if he can heal up from his injury. So you're just trying to find like one starting corner and a better backup. Really, the inside linebacker position is the one that's like really up in the air at this moment. But you can find a good amount of replacements at all of these positions. And sure, at outside linebacker, you'd love if they got an edge rusher like Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. But the more I think about it, I don't know. I'm kind of falling into maybe the Bucs go after Khalil Mack for like a 1-year deal because Mack's going to be a free agent. He's never been an unrestricted free agent in his career, which is like absolutely crazy when you think about it. But he's a Florida guy, is from Fort Pierce, Florida. Yeah. Maybe he wants one more season, goes out in his home state, and maybe in Tampa because he'd have 3 options in his home state playing professionally. Why not? Maybe a 1-year deal, and you don't have to worry about long-term with Khalil Mack, and can still get after the passer. There's no doubt about that.
He's got some edge to him, too. He's a bit of an ass kicker. I like it. Yeah.
Y.O. Bucko, thanks for the $1.99 super chat, says, just a nervous fan scared to lose Liam Coen. Talk to me.
Don't be frightened. Everything's going to be okay. No, I wish I could say that.
Too much.
Yeah. I wish I could say that Liam Coen is definitely going to stay. I think he will. I don't think that the Blazers want to lose this guy. There is something special about him. wasn't terribly special last night. He'll probably be the first one to say that. He would love to have some of those calls back and the execution. I know he's getting beat up for the end arounds, but gosh, people, it's like it's a handoff
all year long.
It's a handoff. It's really no different than Bucky Irving taking a carry outside of the volume. I get that. Jalen McMillan doesn't take handoffs from Baker Mayfield as much as Bucky Irving. I get that. At the same time, though, there's probably more peril in completing a pass in terms of what could go wrong than a simple handoff on an end around. They practiced this hundreds of times since training camp. We have seen end arounds with everybody, including Jalen McMillan, time and time again, Matt. So I don't really think that was like the turning point of the game, outside of the fact that the Buccaneers defense couldn't get off the field or couldn't get a takeaway to neutralize that. It certainly was a factor. I'm not brushing it off, but it wasn't like that was the play that doomed this team. You can go back to the Graham Barton snap on 4th and 1, or I should say on 3rd down that led to the 4th and 3 situation. There's a lot of moments you can pick and choose from. Having Josh Hayes in there for Jamel Dean. Jamel Dean's injury, you could say, kind of cost this team. Not that he wanted to get hurt by any means, but that was certainly a huge blow when you've got a guy in there who's not nearly as good as Terry McLaurin and certainly not as good as Jamel Dean was in coverage. And he gave up a huge 3rd and 6 opportunity, a 21-yard catch and run by De'Ami Brown. If you're Todd Bowles, you drop Yaya Diaby in coverage to cover Austin Eckler, who got 18 yards on 2nd and 10. There's a lot of plays you can point to. So I'm not going to sit there and crucify Jalen McMillan or Liam Coen about that. I think Coen ends up staying in Tampa one way or the other. I've gone on record as saying that. I think they'll find a way to make that happen.
I think for Coen and the potential of being a head coach this season, the teams that I worry about at this point, and it's kind of good that Mike Vrabel, actually it's really good that Mike Vrabel's really going to the Patriots because that knocks one out.
Right.
The Cowboys, now that that's a possibility, that one I'd be worried about. The Raiders I'd be worried about. But then also, now that Mike McCarthy is available, the Bears would be the 3rd team that I'd be concerned about. Jacksonville, I think you can throw in there, but like the Saints, the Jets, I wouldn't worry about that at all. But now that McCarthy's in the mix, if he can go to one of those teams, that's right. Eliminates Coen going to one of those teams too.
Yep.
So, just kind of cross your fingers a little bit.
Yeah.
Bucs Basement, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says 0-5 in primetime games this year, 2-8 in one-score games, barely above 500 as Bucs head coach, 1-3 in the playoffs. That's all that needs to be said.
Bucs Basement, Jason Light knows all this. The Blazers know all this. They are contemplating this. They're weighing the options, breaking out the legal pad with the pros and the cons, just like Matt Matera did during roll call today. It's a weighty decision, and at the same time, again, I'm not necessarily in the keep Todd Bowles camp, but I'm speaking nothing but facts when I say he is the only head coach in Bucs history to win 3 straight division titles. He is the only Bucs head coach to win 3 division titles in his first seasons as head coach. He's the only head coach to win a division title in his first season as head coach. Bruce Arians didn't do that. Actually, I take that back. John Gruden did, and John Gruden did win 3, but not in a row, and not the first 3 years to start his career. That was 2002, 2005, and 2007 for Gruden. So everything you're saying is true. Everything I said is true. Everything Matt Matera said is true, and the Blazers have a lot of truth to go over to find out which direction they want to go in and which truth they want to believe about Todd Bowles. Because ultimately the question they have to answer is, it's not about what Bowles has done. It's about what Bowles will do for this team. It's about what can he do? Has he hit the ceiling? Is this it? Is this a 9-10 Buccaneer team that's slightly better than what Jeff Fisher used to turn in when he was the head coach of the Rams and the Titans with 7-9, right? That was the joke with Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what they're contemplating right now.
And that's why if Coen can come back, you at least set up for next year. If Todd can get to let's just say one more win better, or even gets to 12 wins, and you see how far he goes into the playoffs, then you can decide then and there, okay, we want him for what will be Baker Mayfield's final year on his contract, depending on extensions and stuff like that. Or do we just rip the Band-Aid off and go straight to Liam Coen? Yeah. So that's why if you have both back, it can help you weigh your decision a lot more.
And to your point, Matt, and a very good one, you also have the interim head coach in waiting, right? If it doesn't go well, if we see this team get off to another hot start, but then slide with 4 straight losses again in another season, you can always just make that switch during the season because you already have Liam Coen on board in that instance. So I'm just saying there's several ways to look at this. Maybe they give Bowles the benefit of the doubt, knowing that if Coen is coming back as offensive coordinator, they can pull that trigger anytime they want. It's their team.
They could. They absolutely could. Gabriel Polo, thanks for the $4.99 super chat. We are all here for our therapy session. It's going to be okay, right?
It's going to be okay. Everything's
going to be
all
fine.
Right. Yeah.
This is like The Sopranos with Tony and Dr. Melfi. So, but yeah, sometimes it's good to talk it out. It helps. So you guys are therapy for us, and we'll be therapy for you.
That's right. We're all in this together.
Yeah. Joel Elrican, thanks for the $5 super chat, says, thanks for such an amazing season of coverage. Well, thank you so much for all of your support.
Yes,
Joel.
Much.
And the coverage will continue. It's not going anywhere. Just adding a Tuesday show. That's pretty much it.
Just go from regular season to off season, just like that.
Yeah. And Paul, a.k.a. OG Baker Bro, who has now been a Peter Report YouTube channel member for 5 months. Thank you for all your support.
Awesome.
Says, some on defense have underperformed due to poor coaching, in my opinion. The Lions defense is decimated with injury, but they kept winning.
That's right.
It's fair to keep Bowles as head coach, but defensive coaching staff needs to be overhauled and get a new defensive coordinator.
Well, I think the thing is Todd Bowles does have some value as a walk-around coach, right? He could be that. He could be a John Harbaugh. He could be a Mike Tomlin, but he wants to call plays. That's why he's doing this. I've asked him about it. He loves calling plays. There's not anybody on the staff that can do a better job. He believes that. I believe it too. But that's the thing. If you make him get a defensive coordinator, that's tough. That's hard because he would have to be turning that job over to somebody else. Like John Harbaugh, when he was the head coach of the Ravens, he didn't call plays at all for the Ravens, right? Same with Mike Tomlin. We took over the job with Pittsburgh. I don't think he called plays in Pittsburgh. And so, you don't miss what you didn't have. And I think with Bowles being the play caller in Tampa since 2019, I don't know that he would relinquish that. So that's kind of like that sticking point. Also, too, it might be a thing where the Glaziers and Jason Light, I hope they do, say, Todd, you need a couple new defensive assistants. These guys are getting long in the tooth. You need some fresh ideas. You need some maybe non-yes men. And we're giving you all these draft picks, the Tyke Smiths, the Yaya Diabis, the Chris Braswells. We're giving you first, second, third, fourth round guys. They're not developing, and you need to make some changes. And if Todd says no, now you've opened another door.
Yeah.
Right. If Todd wants to play the game of, hey, these are my coaches. We won with them. I trust them. I don't want to make any changes. That might force the Glazers' hand.
Yeah, it's like he gets credit for being loyal, but you're almost too loyal at that point where it may cost you your job. So we'll see. I do like what Bowles said today about he's always learning.
Yes.
When you stop learning, you stop growing and that type of stuff. And we look at Pop Warner to high school and college for different plays and things of that nature, which I think is good. But what has he learned about his coaching staff? I think would be big for this off season. Thanks to Nicola Legistina for this $4.99 super chat, who says, I'm torn. Injuries played a role, and you can't blame Bowles for that. But at the same time, his decisions and clock management were awful. Thanks, guys. And part of the decisions, I think, for Bowles is it was always mixed in between. Like, are you going to go for it or are you not going to go for it? Are you going
Right.
to go for it or you're not going to go for it? Where
Yeah.
you at least knew where the Lions stood if it's like a 4th and 2. You know they're going for it no matter what.
Right.
And yeah, it hurt them in the NFC Championship game. But, the Bucs were very aggressive in the game against the Saints going for it on 4th down.
Yeah.
And then they didn't go for it late in the game. And again, I don't blame them for doing that late in the game.
Yeah.
But don't be 1 foot in and one foot out. And I think Bowles kind of fell into that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is he going to get better at clock management? This has been going on since 2022 when he took over as head coach. I haven't seen any improvement per se, right? And sometimes there's a game or two where the score, the situation doesn't really dictate that there has to be a pressing clock management issue.
Right.
But for that to rear its ugly head in the first and second halves of the last game of the year, and this has been going on in select games since 2022, tells me there's not really been the growth in the evolution of Todd Bowles in this key area, and that's concerning.
Certainly is. Thomas Pelakudis, thank you for the $5 super chat, says, any chance Bowles just retires?
With this franchise, anything can happen. I've
Right.
seen it all.
Everything's on the table.
Yes, I've seen it all. I've seen Bruce Arians suddenly retire where Matt and I were down at West Palm waiting to talk to him. And all of a sudden, Brian Ford and Nelson Luis come out and say, yeah, Bruce isn't here. He's gone. So we're going to have Brian Ford talk. And the next day, boom, Bruce retires. I've seen John Gruden get acquired via a trade. I've seen Tony Dungy, the face of the franchise, get cut, fired. Same thing with John Gruden. He got a 3-year contract extension in 2008. Not even 9 months later, he's fired. And the Blazers paid him for 3 years at an increased salary not to coach. So I've seen it all. Any chance he just retires? Sure. Why not? I've seen everything.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow he's like, you know what? I'm kind of over this. I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
Redfish, thanks for the $4.99 super chat. Not a Bulls fan, but hard to judge him yesterday. Izzian IR, Whitehead IR, Dean hurt, McCollum hurt, and Dan Quinn eschewed field goals. We held on third. Tough call.
Yeah, I mean, injury is part of the game, and I appreciate Bowles for not really using those as an excuse. I mean, he mentioned those today. He's like, yeah, we were injured, but like everybody else is injured too, right? So I appreciate that for Bowles. I always thought it was funny where John Gruden would say, I'm not going to use injuries as an excuse, man. And then he would proceed to list off like the 13 players in injured reserve. But I got this guy, and this guy's out, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy's out, and that guy, and this guy. So it was like, all right, John, which one is it? With Bowles, he's never really made the excuse. It's not an excuse. It's a reality. And yes, we have seen the revolving door in the secondary for sure. That has impeded this team's ability to do what Todd Bowles wanted to do and sometimes needed to win games from a coverage standpoint, et cetera. At the same time, you can look at the Detroit Lions roster that Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, has to deal with. At times, there were 6 starters on defense on injured reserve at the same time, including their best player, Aiden Hutchinson, who was out after 5 or 6 games. And they're 15-2. Yeah. So, cry me a river all you want about the injuries, but nobody's feeling sorry for the Lions. They're 15-2, dealing with more injuries probably than anybody else.
It's very true. It's very accurate. Meets McGee, thanks for the $5, says JP spoke on if the Bucs did fire Bowles, this would be the top job out there. We would have choices of Liam, Ben Johnson, and Todd Monken. What say you?
It's certainly an attractive job. Yeah, with an
5 playoffs
standpoint.
In a row.
Sure. Yeah, Super Bowl caliber roster. Certainly on the offensive side. Yeah. Ben Johnson, I'm not so sure about. Todd Monken would love to come here, I'm sure, and he would be, if Liam Coen left, Todd Monken would be the guy, right? I mean, he just would, and I'd love to have him here. I loved having him here the first time around when he was Dirk Cutter's receivers coach / offensive coordinator and play caller. And look what he's done, man. He won a national championship with Stetson Bennett at Georgia. and Brock Bowers and like nobody else. And then look what he's done with Lamar Jackson in 2 seasons in Baltimore. Just incredible play caller, incredible offensive mind. So Liam Coen, Todd Monken, sign me up. One of those guys. If this team moves on from Bowles, sure, I'm all about it.
Yeah, because like Ben Johnson, it's like, well, you already have Liam Coen. Like, what exactly are you getting different with Ben Johnson?
Right.
Todd Monken, obviously a little bit more of a grizzled veteran, obviously familiar with the Tampa area.
He's got an edge too about him. Like Monken, Monken's a dude. Yeah, he's got an edge about him, and
he worked with Baker.
Yeah, work with Baker. He was Chris Godwin's first receivers coach here in Tampa. Worked with Mike for 3 years. So
that's also true.
There's a lot to like about Todd Monken too, for sure.
And not getting talked about as much this year. Like last year, he was very much part of the coaching carousel in terms of interviews, but this year not as much. Interestingly enough, Mason DeBoard, thanks for the $10, says how Tampa Bay handled the media questions about him and Tomlin 2 years ago showed he has great character. Or Tom Brady, that's probably what he means. Wish he could have been our guy. Defense was basically at full health and still lost last night.
Yeah, and the defense was pretty much at full health last night until Jamel Dean went out. And, not a good look for Jamel Dean. I don't think he's going to be a Buccaneer next year. I really don't. I think that got under some people's skin last night when he couldn't finish the game. And, injuries are one thing. Being hurt's another. Right? You play through being hurt. And if you're injured, like you break a leg or, your shoulder comes out of joint or something like that, or you tear a pec or whatever, that's different. Yeah. Like we saw Christian Izzy, and he's like in a sling today for his pec, right? I mean, like he's like in an immobilized, like you can't put him in a football uniform and play him. But there are some guys that have had hamstring issues that opted out and all this. So I don't think Jamel Dean is going to be a Buccaneer next year.
We shall see. Depends on who they can find to replace him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Jonas Correa.
If they can't find a replacement.
Yeah. Jonas Correa, thanks for the $4.99. I'm not going to lie. Bruce retiring a week after Brady came back was so weird. Always felt like he was pushed to retire by the Bucs, to be honest, so Brady would return.
That is a conspiracy theory out there, and I'm up for a good conspiracy theory. So I'm sure, why not?
Bruce has denied it, and he's like, like me and Tom still go golfing and stuff like that. The reason why it leads me to believe it is because Bruce has always been a guy that says what's on his mind, and he calls guys out and stuff like that. And I get it; he doesn't want to like burn bridges and stuff like that. And I'm sure he does want to help out, or at the time help out Todd Bowles and get him a head coaching job. Yeah. But there's no doubt it was very odd the way that it all went down. Yes. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt about it is right. It was odd.
Bucs Basement, thanks for the $2. If Bowles was just a defensive coordinator, he'd be fired after this year.
Yeah.
There is a good chance that would be the case.
That's a very astute point, Bucs Basement. We saw Jimmy Lake, friend of the program, a good friend of mine, get fired in Atlanta. And he's best friends with Raheem Morris. Those guys coach together here in Tampa and everything. So it's tough, man. It is a business at the end of the day, right? It's fine to hire your buddies and your friends, but Todd Bowles is going to have to make some similar calls, man. Kevin Ross, who he played with at Temple, the cornerbacks coach, not good. He needs to go. George Edwards, who got bounced twice from Dallas. I don't know what the appeal is about George Edwards. I don't think he's a good coach. Show me the results of where he has been good. Sorry, Micah Parsons has done just fine without George Edwards. So I don't get the appeal there. Nick Rapone probably should retire. He was Todd Bowles' position coach, his safety coach at Temple. So I don't know. Get some young guys in there that are more relatable, that maybe have some more innovative ways of doing things. The NFL, man, it is evolve or die, adapt or die. I have seen it kill the careers of Lovie Smith, Mike Smith, defensive coordinator. This game will pass you by if you don't keep up. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like there's the innovation that you'd want from this defense. It was innovative when Bowles first came in, but it's not anymore. He's been here for a while.
Yep.
Mike Wells, thanks for the $10 super chat.
Thank you, Mike.
Awesome show, guys. It's been fun listening to you all season. Now that the offseason is starting, looking to free agency in the draft, what are some of the moves and players you're going to keep an eye on?
If I didn't have 3 cans of Celsius in me to where my brain cells are swimming right now, I could probably rattle off a couple guys. I would say keep an eye on like Trey Hendrickson, see what happens there. If I'm Jason Light, I'm calling about Max Crosby. Don't know what's going to happen or not. I would call about Myles Garrett. Just kick some tires and see. Wouldn't hurt. Get an upper echelon pass rusher. I know this team has passed on Hassan Reddick before, but maybe you strike a deal where, he doesn't get the king's ransom that he wants per se, but he has an opportunity to come here and rush. I mean, listen, this is not a bad spot for an edge rusher to come to. You got Yaya Diaby on one side taking some of the attention, and you got Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey to help you out in the middle, right? I mean, it's pretty attractive.
It is pretty
spot.
enticing.
It is, yeah. So we'll have, listen, offseason just started. We will have plenty of podcasts and plenty of stories on pewterreport.com to address this. But I appreciate your support, Mike. Thank you very much for the
it's a great question. I mentioned Khalil Mack before. DJ
Khalil
Reed, the cornerback for the Jets, will be a free agent. He's someone. PFF had Rasul Douglas as a top 50 cornerback as well. So there will certainly be options. Yeah. Slay 509, thanks for the $1.99, says Bowles is the ghost of the Super Bowl past. We need to move on.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know how much gas is left in the Shaq Barrett tank either, right? We only saw him for a couple of snaps out there, Matt. And
they dropped him back in coverage. He played 5 snaps and they dropped him back in coverage.
Yeah. And so to me, and Todd Bowles is like, I want to see him next year. I'm like, I don't know if I want to or not. I mean, I want a younger, better pass rusher. And now if he can, if he just needed a year to get past the Achilles and he's going to come back and still have that first step, sure. Give him a look-see, but don't bank on it. I mean, if you get something out of Shaq Barrett at age 32, coming off a down year in production, a year out of football, coming off the Achilles injury, if you can squeeze something out of him, great. But man, don't count on it. Yeah,
I love Shaq, but I don't want Shaq taking up playing time for Chris Braswell or let's remember Marquise Watts is here and Jose Ramirez. They seem to never dress for a game. I know he's dressed a couple of times.
That's because Joe Tryon-Schwink is so good. If you just listen to George Edwards, he'd tell you that, Matt. Come on.
He's a physical specimen. How could you go against it?
Yeah.
Richie P, thank you for the $20 super chat. Says, in the spirit of turning the page and looking forward, here are my draft picks. All right.
Okay.
What do you think, guys? I know too early. First round, James Pierce Jr. Second round, Xavier Restrepo. Third round, Mello Dotson.
Pierce, I love. I'm really kind of diving into him. There's a lot of edge rushers I like Mike Green from Marshall. I love Ekoronkwo, I think, is Donovan. He's the Boston College kid. I'm kind of high on him a little bit. Pierce is good. Ivy and Yamanuladian from Ole Miss. Both of those guys are intriguing. The South Carolina kid, Kennard is good. There's a lot of guys that I'm really kind of diving into from an edge rush standpoint. And Pierce is phenomenal. He's got a great first step. Restrepo, I like. He's a smaller, undersized wide receiver who's a third down slot guy. Great hands. I love him. I think he's a really good player. I don't know that he is Liam Cohen's kind of guy. I'll just leave it at that. Mello Dotson. I have no KU bias really when it comes to the draft. I hate KU players during football season, but if they can help the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, heck, I thought Aqib Talib was good on the field. Off the field, not so much, but on the field, he was good. So we were big fans of Dominic Puny at the Senior Bowl, the KU offensive lineman, who had a great season, I guess, out in San Francisco. Mello Dotson is a good long corner. Again, the thing is if Todd Bowles leaves, who's the defensive coordinator? What type of cornerback does he want? You mentioned DJ Reed out of Kansas State. I'm familiar with DJ. Great cornerback, but there's no way he would be an outside corner for Todd Bowles. He's too small. He's like 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah, he's shorter.
But Todd likes the 6'1", 6'2" corners. And so that's more of what Melo Dotson is. But if it's not Todd, if it's some other defensive coordinator next year, then it really opens up a whole different bag in terms of what types of players you're looking for as an edge rusher, as a cornerback, as an inside linebacker, et cetera.
All very true. FBC, thanks for the $5 super chat, says defensive players not developing are out of his control. Talking about Bowles. What? I get your point, but I like, okay, for every Yaya Diaby, there's Kalijah Cansey, who, looks great in year 2. Obviously, Antoine Winfield Jr. got developed into an all-pro. So, yeah, you can look at the guys that didn't work, but you could also counter it with the guys that have worked.
Yeah. I just wonder what happened to Jordan Whitehead, Yeah. Jordan Whitehead just wasn't good this year before the injury.
No.
Just wasn't good.
Was not. Had a good first 2 games, but then it went downhill. Spider-Man, thanks for the $4.99 super chat, says, has the Bucs ever done anything to have you consider no longer supporting them? For me, it was firing Lovie Smith in the middle of the night.
No, I mean, I give the team the benefit of the doubt. I understand the rules. It's not my team. My last name isn't Laser. My last name isn't Light either. No, I mean, this is my job first and foremost. It's a profession of mine.
Like we're here to cover them, not
right. If Jason Light gets fired tomorrow, I'm gonna cover the next general manager. Right. If the Blazers sell the team, I'm gonna still cover the Buccaneers, regardless of who the new owner is. I've been through a myriad of head coaches. That doesn't change, regardless of the players come and go, the GMs, the head coaches, the owners have stayed around for 30 years. I walked in the door with the Blazer family. So we're at the 30-year mark ourselves. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter to me.
Bucs Basement, thanks for the 5, says, based on Matt's pro list to keep Bowles, the majority of those are emotional reasons. Sorry, this is a business and Bowles stats don't lie. Mediocre.
Well,
the only emotional thing I brought up is just like getting the team to rally around losing 4 to then go win 4.
Yeah.
But they statistically did do that.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And you can be a really good X's and O's guy. You can be a great scheme guy, but you may suck as a motivator. You may play the wrong guys. John Gruden really ruffled some feathers in Tampa when he would go up to Michael Pittman and say, Mike, you're my 1,000-yard back this year, man. Okay. You're my guy. And then he'd go to Thomas Jones and say the exact same thing. The other running back, Thomas, DJ, man, you're a 1,000-yard back this year for me. And then these guys would be like, wait a minute, I thought I was a 1,000-yard back. Well, in John's mind, he wanted both of you guys to strive to be 1,000-yard backs. Yeah. But the way it came out, it seemed a little like divisive. Like there was always like Mike Allstott and John Gruden didn't like see eye to eye, right? There's always like some friction between Gruden and some of his players, even some of his stars. Keyshawn Johnson couldn't stand John Gruden and vice versa, right? But there's no friction there. So, but you have that with some coaches. Like Mike Martz was a mad scientist. I mean, he was the architect of the greatest show on turf. But roster management as a leader of men, probably not his strongest suit.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not like a quantifiable thing with the leadership part.
Correct.
Payne Gusto has been a Pewter Report YouTube channel member for 5 months. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Payne Gusto, who says, I think we're going to keep Bowles, give Liam a hell of a raise, and change some things on that defensive staff. But I can see offensive coordinators lining up to coach this roster. That's another thing. If Liam Coen does end up leaving, yes, Todd Bowles could hire from within, depending on who Coen would end up bringing. But there are some other offensive coordinators outside of the Bucs that, remember 2 years ago, the Bucs were kind of grasping at straws to find anybody to be their offensive coordinator because they had signed Baker, but Baker wasn't who he is now. And it was a much rougher situation going to the Bucs as offensive coordinator. Now it's like the number one spot you'd want to go to if you wanted to upgrade and become a play caller. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, not to start anything, but like Jake Peets was a guy that they interviewed and they didn't end up hiring him. He's now the Seahawks offensive, or not offensive coordinator, but passing game coordinator. And so he would be kind of like an out of network kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then if they wanted to go in house, there's another guy, Josh Grizzard, who came over from the Dolphins, and he's a player that he's the pass game coordinator here. Very bright mind. So they have some options. I think Jason Light has covered all the bases just in case. You always have to have these backup plans, these plan Bs. And so there are a couple guys, on the roster, on the short list that Jason Light could have to go to. This is becoming a familiar thing now. Jason Light hasn't been to the Senior Bowl, Matt, in 3 years because he went from Byron Leftwich to Dave Canales, from Dave Canales to Liam Coen. And that's really when all these coaching interviews have taken place, is during Senior Bowl week. So we've been there. Jason hasn't. His scouts have been there, which is good. But we'll see what happens.
We shall.
Oops.
Thanks to FBC for this $20 super chat. Says Bowles needs worst division, top owners, top GM, record-setting quarterback, offensive coordinator, Hall of Fame players, fully healthy roster, better defensive staff than what he picked. If he requires perfect conditions, then why have him be head coach besides likability?
That's a strong argument right there. I mean, no lies detected, right? I mean, that's pretty spot on. Again, we're not advocating.
Benefited a ton from the division.
There's no doubt. Yes, there's no doubt. And maybe Bowles is gone by now if he is trying to win in a tougher division, right? I mean, this is not the AFC West where you have 3 teams making the playoffs.
Yeah.
This is the NFC South where it took week 18 to figure out who's going to be the guy or the team to win that division. The last 2 years in a row, it's come down to week 18.
Richie P, thanks for the $10. Hard to put last night's game on Bowles. The last couple of years, we have been offense leaning as it relates to the draft. If we would have had a JPP, Simeon Rice, or even a prime Shaq type, we win. Yep.
That's true, and got to keep in mind too that they were still paying some salary cap credit card debt from this past year, and that's what allowed them to have enough money to re-sign their own guys, but not really go out and get that other key piece, right? And do you want to trade off Baker Mayfield for that key piece, or Mike Evans for that key piece, or Antoine Winfield Jr. for that key piece? Like, you can bring somebody in, but they didn't have enough money to go around last year with those guys. And they were able to bring back their guys with only Chris Godwin being that big primetime free agent heading into 2025. They're going to have the opportunity and the money to go out and get another key piece or two in free agency from another team this year.
Finally, feels like it's been a while since they've been able to. Bart Harley Jarvis, thanks for the $10. Glazers keeping Bowles signals to the fans that they're okay with mediocrity. Division titles are nice, but the Super Bowl window is now, and a defensive coach isn't getting enough out of his defense.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, Bart.
Not wrong. We have seen them go a decade without making the postseason at all. That's what makes it so 50-50.
I know. Yeah, I like what you said at the end. The defensive coach isn't getting enough out of his defense, and that's the most damning thing. That is the most damning thing, and last night was on display. No punts, 69 plays for the Commanders, 44 for the Buccaneers, 55% conversion rate on 3rd and 4th down combined. Todd Bowles' defense could not get a takeaway at all again, and they couldn't get off the field. And they had 4 minutes and 41 seconds to do it, man. They couldn't get off the field.
No punts. Bucs Basement, thanks for the $2. Oh, my God. It's the worst division in football. Context. That's important.
Yep, it is.
Very important.
Well said.
No denying that. FBC, thanks for the $5. Objectively, if Coen gets an offer, he needs to take it. Ask Leftwich how quick will things can change, LOL.
That's true. Yeah, Byron Leftwich was in consideration for that Jacksonville job. He wanted Adrian Wilson. He didn't want to work with Trent Baalke. Smart decision in hindsight, because nobody does apparently. But but now he's not even coaching anywhere in college or pro.
All right, we have a $49.99 super chat from Mopar Buck, who I must say was absolutely eviscerating me in the comments on yesterday's show. Thank you for commenting. And
yes,
if you're going to super chat us, you can say whatever you want about me, but you really do not like me, Mopar Buck, and that's totally fine. But thank you for the $49.99 super chat, who says, all that you're saying about Bulls winning multi-division championships, but the bar has been very low in this division, so that he has to be in consideration when speaking on our recent success. If Bulls is in another division, he's fired. And then Mopar Buck follows that up with a $19.99 super chat. Says, typos in my first super chat, LOL. But long story short, the bar is low here in the NFC South, and he struggled. There hasn't been one season of dominance with him as a head coach in a bad division.
Yeah,
well, thank you again for the super chats.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And even at Matt's expense, we appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And
not going to please everyone.
Yeah, and the thing is to your point, Mopar, that's a good point. For years, and Matt, this being a long-suffering Jets fan, the Patriots ruled the AFC East, right, until the Bills kind of came along with Josh Allen. But it was pretty much, there were years with the Jets with Parcells and all that, but I mean, during the 20 years of Tom Brady in New England, it was the Patriots winning a lot of those NFC or AFC East championships. And they were the only team. The Dolphins were down, the Jets were down, the Bills were down. And that's why you saw a lot of 13-win Patriot teams, 13-3. This wasn't back with 17 games. This was 16. So 13-3, 14-2. Shoot, they even went 16-0 one year, because they were in a bad division. We haven't seen that from this Todd Bowles Buccaneer team. 8-9, 9-10, 10-7. They've had to win the division in week 17 in 2022, in week 18 in 2023, and week 18 in 2024. Those are facts.
I do agree that it does feel like next year, or this upcoming season, if everyone's back in place, it should be a season of dominance. With the way that the Saints are, the Panthers should be a little bit better, but I'm not ready to put them into the wild card conversation just yet. And Atlanta, I mean, I don't really know what to make out of them with Michael Penix, truly his first season as a starter. So it should be. Listen, they can't trend the other direction. They 10 wins is now the bar for this team, and specifically Todd Bowles, and it should be 11 or 12, especially with playing the AFC East.
That's right.
This year. Mopar Buck, thanks for the $9.99 super chat. Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say real quick, just from Ian Rappaport, the Titans are bringing back several candidates for the second round of interviews for their vacant GM job. Among them, Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi, who was also interviewed not just with Tennessee, but also with the Jets, where Mike Greenberg interviewed on Friday. But Borgonzi is also in the running for the Titans. He's a very hot name right now, as well as John Spytek, who will get a second interview with Tennessee. Obviously, on Friday, made a good case for himself there. Yeah. And then Bears assistant general manager Ian Cunningham. So those three people, Borgonzi, Spytek, and Cunningham, will get a second interview with the Titans for their vacant GM position. I talked about that on a Pewter Pulse episode I did on Saturday. So you probably found out about Spytek and Tennessee. It's not that great of a job, but at the same time, there's only like 32 general manager positions in the league. But I go into it in depth on the Pewter Pulse, so make sure you check that out.
Mopar Buck, thanks for the $9.99 super chat. As a fan base, we have settled for blow games against piss poor teams and make excuses for losses against good teams. We stole a few good wins this season. The defense is JV level, and it has been.
Yeah.
Subpar this year.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Evan Perlman, thanks for the $5 super chat. Was at the game. Tough loss. Was going to be at the Eagles game for my 21st birthday if we won.
Oh, man.
Bulls coaches to tie Commanders played to win next year. Well, happy early birthday,
yes,
Evan.
Happy birthday.
21st birthday.
Yeah.
If you want to drink up, do it responsibly, but have a good time. 21st birthday.
Dan Quinn I was oscillating on him last night because I'm like, man, like you could be up by 6 points right now if you had settled for some of these field goals that are going for it. But at the end of the day, his aggressive nature paid off. They got the touchdown on McLaurin on 4th down. He passed up a couple field goals. I was like, what's Dan Quinn doing? Well, Dan Quinn wanted just to win the freaking game. And he just said, we're not punting. We're going for it on 4th downs. And we're going for the haymaker shots. And, they didn't really knock the Bucs out, but they took them to the Cards, Matt, and they won on the Cards 23-20, that last second field goal. But hats off to Dan Quinn. He came to Tampa to win the game, and he certainly coached like it last night.
He trusted Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And they put the ball in the hands of Jaden Daniels to win the game.
Yeah,
and he did. We
Whoa.
have a 99.99 super chat from Black Gold 1999. Thank you so much for this super chat. That is mighty kind of you. As they say, I've been a Tampa Bay Bucs fan since 1993. We had some hard years, so this year was a good year because the 80s were rough. The early 90s were rough, and after 2008, life was miserable. So be happy that we are above 500 now because we was worse than worse. That's great perspective.
It is.
It could always be a lot worse. There are a lot of teams that would kill to be in the Bucs position right now.
That's right. And it goes back to what Matt said, and he's right. The grass isn't always greener, so there is some risk in firing Todd Bowles. Maybe he doesn't get you to that next level. And, of course, that's why you're in this game, to win a Super Bowl, right? So you can't fault a team for wanting to level up. It's why they fired Tony Dungy, because they loved him. They appreciated him turning the franchise around, but he just wasn't the guy to get the team to the next level. So I appreciate the Glazers wanting excellence, wanting to try to take shots and win this thing. At the same time, though, we have seen a decade of darkness under their watch too, right?
Yeah.
Josh Freeman, Jameis Winston, Josh McCown, Mike Lennon. I mean, it was rough for a decade. I mean, Gerald McCoy never saw a playoff game in Tampa, right? I mean, 6-time Pro Bowler.
It's true.
It was bad for a while. So they've seen both sides of it, the success and the unfortunate, not successful years.
FBC, thanks for the $10 super chat. I know the Jets are incompetent. Sorry, Matt. But people talk about Bowles like a new coach that just needs time to develop. He's coached over 100 games. A lot of records on him as a head coach by now, 53 and 65. And
that's
to
right.
this point, and to kind of go back to Black Gold 1999's point as well, the New York Jets have not made the playoffs in 15 years.
Yeah. So
there is no level of incompetence like the New York Jets. Like, I went through my whole 20s without the Jets making the playoffs. So, but to that point, Bowles, this is not his first rodeo. He has seen what it's like being a head coach in this league, and that's some of the things. Like, time management was an issue when he was coaching the Jets.
Yeah.
And winning and getting in was something where he had that his first opportunity with the Jets, and they lost to a bad Bills team the last week of the season. Now, his time with the Bucs, they've been able to still get in, but there were times where they could have clinched in, week 17 instead of week 18, and they didn't. They lost to the Cowboys this season where they could have just had to beat the Panthers the next week and get in, and they didn't. So, I don't know how much Todd Bowles has learned from some of his mistakes with the Jets, just based on what he's done in this tenure with them.
Yep, agreed.
Bart Harley Jarvis, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, absolutely hate the constant dropping edge guys into coverage. They have one guy who projects to be potentially elite, and it's Diaby. Let him rush.
Yeah, I've talked about it. I've complained about it. We complained about it last night. We complained about it last week when Spencer Rattler threaded the needle between Diaby and Anthony Nelson to hit Foster Moreau for a first down on 3rd and 9. So it's just like, if these guys could make plays and coverage, I'd be all for it. We saw JPP and his messed up hand have 2 interceptions one year. Shaq Barrett has had interceptions. Joe Tryon-Schwenka, for all of the chess piece talk and conversation, I don't think has batted a ball down in coverage yet, much less picked one off. Same with Anthony Nelson. Same with Yaya Diaby. Let him rush the passer. That's what they do best. And just the occasional zone blitz, sure, fine, whatever. But I mean, even Monty Kiffin would do that with Simeon Rice. The occasional zone drop, sure. I think Rice picked off a pass against Carolina one year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But not with the regularity that Bowles does it. It's maddening.
You don't see Mike Evans lining up in the backfield.
Amen.
So you don't ask Mike Evans to be a running back.
Yeah, or throw the ball or block, as an inline tight end. You don't see him playing tight end, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well said.
Scotty J, thanks for the $4.99 super chat, says, check me if I'm wrong, Sandy. Scott, isn't next year number 30 for you covering our Bucs? Congrats, mi amigo. Where's the party? Todd lost me in Kansas City 2-point conversions. Shaking my head.
Yeah, so this is technically my 30th season covering the Buccaneers that I just finished, but it won't be 30 years on the job until May 17th, because that's when I started at Buccaneer Magazine / Peter Report. So it won't be a full 30 years until May. So, which is why I say 29 years, but I just finished my 30th year because technically I started in May and football season starts in August / September. So 29, 30, I'm there. I'm 3 decades in.
3 decades. Wow.
That means I'm old.
Great tenure. Incredible. Where are we at? Bucs fan since Leroy, 63. Thanks for the $5 super chat. Says, Bowles, 3 straight seasons playoffs. Why burn them? Defensive back needs draft upgrades. First, S. Revel. Second,
Shannon
J. Campbell.
Revel.
Third, D. Swinson.
Yeah. We'll get into all of the draft names. We're digging on the East Carolina cornerback, Revel, who's been injured for a part of this year. Jihad Campbell, I'm kind of like with Josh Capo, not a huge fan of him. I think in the right situation, maybe, but I'm not the biggest Jihad Campbell fan. Swinson, I have not done a deep enough dive on him yet, so we'll see. Keep in mind, like we were talking about, the grass is always greener and all of this. There were days when I would be up on everybody in the draft by January because that's what I did in November and December.
Yeah,
the Buccaneers were losing games and fighting for the top 5 pick overall. I would study the draft more, but now we're knee deep in playoff coverage well into January here because this what this team has done the last 5 years. So our draft coverage starts now, and we're diving into players and prospects that we have to have on more than just the periphery as we head into the Senior Bowl.
Mopar Buck, thank you for the $19.99 super chat. Says, I love you, Matt. You had me a little bothered last night. We good, man. I love you too, Mopar Buck. I appreciate you. And I get it. Last night was a frustrating loss for the Bucs, and that's what fans do. They get angry, and I appreciate your support. And yeah, you're fantastic as a commenter. We thank you for all your super chats.
No doubt.
Appreciate I have no problem if people want to get mad at me. I mean, no one's going to agree with every single take that anyone at Pewter Report has. So I appreciate your fandom.
Yeah, Brian S. says, so May 17th is the Pewter Platinum Party, right? We'll see. We'll have something. We'll have something to commemorate me being old for 30 years covering this team in May. It'd be a good time to do it because it's the off season. Brandon Funk says, I'm an ECU Pirate, and Revel will be a perfect fit for us. Yeah. Interesting player. We'll see how he fares from the injury, and we'll have plenty of draft coverage coming up here. We have a couple more super chats as we wind down the show, and greatly appreciate everybody for their support.
Yeah. Thank you to you all, including Twan Blow. Thanks for the $1.99 super chat. Mike McCarthy out, but Todd stays. Shaking my head.
No way. We'll see. Again, we preface this show starting off by saying this team has made coaching changes on Black Monday, into January, middle of January, late January, into middle of February, into late March. So hang on until we get an official word from the Glazers or from Jason Light that Todd Bowles is here to stay. We'll see. We'll see.
And how long was McCarthy there for? 3 or 4 seasons?
Good question. If my buddy Rick Zoyce was here, he would tell us. I think at least 3. I know at least 3.
At least 3, no doubt about it. He was with the Cowboys 2020, 21, 22, 23. He was there for 5 seasons.
5.
So
okay, yeah.
He's ahead of schedule for Todd Bowles.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
as far as head coaching. Obviously, Bowles
Yep.
has been in the organization for a little bit longer. FBC, thank you for the $5 super chat, says, nothing says rebooting the defense like Bowles mentioning bringing back Shaq. Love Shaq, but time to move on. Feels very Cam Bradish.
That's well said. I was kind of thinking the same thing today when he said that. Maybe he was just trying to be polite to Shaq in a press conference, right? Maybe he has different feelings behind closed doors. I don't know. Listen, I'll take anybody if they can play. Right? Tom Brady could play at age 42 and 43. 44, not so much, but yeah, if you can still play. I don't care how old you are.
Play is going to play. Jamie Miles, thank you for the $5. Inside linebacker Jihad Campbell is a must. Size 6'3", 244, and athleticism. 2, can rush the pass and cover. 3, young, turns 21 in February. Room for growth.
I think the thing is the speed. That's going to be the key is what is the sideline to sideline speed? How fast is that 40 time? It does matter at certain positions. And is he truly an upper end athlete? That's going to be determined in Indianapolis with those athletic testing numbers. And the film is okay. Sometimes the Alabama guys, because they're surrounded with talent, it's a little bit murky, but we'll see. I'm not crossing him off the board. I'm just saying I'm not on him yet. I'm kind of in the Josh Capo camp, which is Jihad Campbell. Okay, good player, but let's see what else is out there. I kind of I'm taking a liking to Chris Paul, not the basketball star, but the guy they call Pooh Paul. He played at Arkansas and then spent the last year at Ole Miss. I've been doing some digging on him. He's a pretty good sideline to sideline guy. He's a good hitter. Pretty good in coverage, good blitzer. He's one of my favorite linebacker prospects so far, but it's early in my evaluations.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on.
Yep.
All right, we have 2 more super chats, each coming from FBC, who's been one of the MVPs of today's show.
Yes.
Thanks for the $10 super chat, FBC, who says, Arian's mantra was no risk it, no biscuit. We took risks and got the biscuit trophy. Bowles' mantra is never too high, never too low, which is literally the definition of mediocrity in a 500. That's very funny.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
it's
true
again,
too.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, this thing about Todd Bowles, there's a lot of truths to Todd, right? Everything we've said in the show, the good and the bad, is true. And that's what the Blazers and Jason Light have to sift through is the truths, the good truths and the bad truths. The good, the bad, the ugly. Like what. And then how much of the bad can you tolerate and how much of the good is there? Is there more good than bad? And does that help you with the decision-making, or is the ugly just too ugly and you got to move on?
Exactly. And man, again, if the vote gets tied 2-2 with the Glazers, who comes in and breaks the tie?
Maybe Mike Greenberg. Maybe he comes in.
Yeah, maybe Greenberg. But then if Greenberg's like, hey, I'm actually going to go to the Jets, so you're going to have to pass this off to Jason.
Right.
Something like that. FBC, thanks for the $5 super chat, says, Bucs, Bowles better pray the NFL doesn't make the rumor changes of playoff hosts being chosen by winning percentage instead of division winners.
Yeah, it's been interesting the last couple of years to have teams with better records coming into Tampa to play a Buccaneer team with lesser records. I mean, go back to...
I wouldn't mind that change, though.
I wouldn't either. I honestly, and people will say, okay, well then what's the point of having divisions because there's no reward for winning your division.
You still get in.
You still get in. Exactly. Yeah. You get the automatic ticket. If you punch your ticket when you win the division, you're automatically in, regardless if you're 8-9 or whatever. And we've seen some 7-9 teams back when there were 16 game seasons. So yeah, you get the automatic bid, but you shouldn't be, if you're 8-9 Tampa Bay, you shouldn't be hosting a double-digit win Cowboy team like was the case in 2022. That just was wrong.
Yeah, or like the Vikings getting screwed over. They're a 2-loss team, a 3-loss team, and they're on the road. They're playing tonight. I'm very excited for that game tonight too. It should be a pretty good one. But yeah, it's like college basketball with March Madness. Like they have the conference tournaments right before that.
Right.
You could be a bad team, but if you win the conference tournament, you get in. But you're not going to get a number 1 seed because of it. And now college football has done it this year, and it kind of got screwy with Clemson winning the ACC and Georgia winning and stuff like that. But anyway, I think that's the best way to go about it. And you should be rewarded for having a good record. You should get penalized for it.
I'm with you on that. We've had a lot of fun today. We've actually kind of kept this outside of Celsius commercial free just because we appreciate everybody with their super chats, with their comments. We have another one here too. So y'all aren't going to let us leave, and that's okay. I'm just going to fall asleep at some point in time. I'm just letting you know, probably the next 30 to 60 minutes, if this continues, I'm just going to face plant on my laptop here, and Matt can finish the show. But we'll get to the super chat here from Alex Royal, $5. What about Danny Stutzman? Also can't let Liam go in this offense regress. Danny Stutzman, his stock has not really gone up. He returned to Oklahoma, and I don't know that it did a bunch for his stock. We'll see. I think the combine testing is very important for him. He is one of those guys that attacks the line of scrimmage really well. How well can he play in reverse? That's the thing. This has become a coverage league. Tampa Bay needs some coverage linebackers because they didn't have enough of them this year. Sebastian Dennis, probably their best one. He was out after the first 4 games, that shoulder injury. I did talk to Boss today. His shoulder is surgically repaired. He is good as new. He is ready to go. He got a taste of what he can do. This year, remember, he got a sack on Jaden Daniels in his first NFL sack back in week 1. Small sample size, but intriguing. We'll see. You can't just bank on him being one of the starters, but I do like the upside and potential. So at least you have one guy in consideration, right? We'll see what happens with Labonte. KJ Britt, I'm ready to move on. And JJ Russell, I'd bring him back. And he's a restricted free agent. We'll see. Yeah. But you need at least 2 more, Matt. You need at least 2 more starting caliber inside linebackers for Todd Bowles or whoever's running the defense next year.
Yeah, I mean, J.J. Russell, I'm fine with coming back, but not as a starter. I like him as a 4th string inside linebacker.
Exactly. Yeah,
which is totally fine. You guys and gals are more than totally fine. This has been a very fun show. I know it was frustrating with the Bucs losing last night, but we've gone over an hour and 40 minutes on today's show. You guys and gals have been great with the super
And you hung
chat.
in there with us too. We have more numbers now than we did when we started. So
the highs, the lows, the pro Todd Bowles, the anti Todd Bowles, what this team needs, what this team should look for. We covered a lot of it. And the beauty of it is that we get to do it all again tomorrow at 4 p.m. So just a reminder to everybody, now that we are in the off season, we will have Pewter Report podcasts Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday every single week. And of course, we'll have our Pewter Insider for Pewter Platinum and Premier members on Friday as well. So in the meantime, if you're not already doing so, please make sure you are following us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video as well. As Mia San Mia says, Maddie, don't go signing with the Jets. I'm not. I want to cover a good football team that doesn't have – the Bucs have their own type of drama,
right?
And that's fine. I'm good covering that. I don't need to cover the drama that's going on with the New York Jets.
That's right.
So yeah, I will continue to cover the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But thanks for the comment, regardless. And as Shaggy says, hit that like button, hit the thumbs up button. We have over 1,100 people watching us, so thank you so much. And that's going to do it for us on this afternoon show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. It's been a great time, and we'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.